And the ancestors are looking out for us. God Hayes is exposing them, man.
Okay, you see that chair right there? See how big it is?
Yeah.
Now look at the poke chair under it. Scroll down, look at the poke chair under it.
Never have it been made so clear.
Young TV. Young.
We running the game right now.
Young TV.
Time to take over.
Young
We the hottest in the game. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button. If you just not tuned in.
TV.
Share, like on your Instagram, Facebook.
Young TV.
If you tuned in, we broadcasting live from 2030, baby.
Young TV. Young
Taking over the game, baby. Oh yeah.
Young TV.
Hit that like.
Young TV.
Get them likes up in the air, you heard me?
Young TV.
Ride by. Hotel Islam.
Young TV.
Assalamu alaikum. Flown lekker.
Young TV.
Hit that like.
Hey y'all, we back again. This Big Momma's meeting the meeting at Big Momma's house, part 7. Right? We got 1 through 6 already. This part 7. And it's about to get lit, y'all. We got Chief Ward Hayes in the building. Skype ape at the North Gate. When we knock, you better bump. It's great. You know what I'm saying? It's about to get ready to go down. I got a lot of fires clip. How you feeling out there, Chief?
Man, I'm all good. I'm just hurry up and waiting. You know, today is the winter solstice.
Man,
Supposed
what
to be
you
the
got
long.
on Detroit, man?
Who on Detroit? What's going on with Detroit?
No, something just about Detroit. Detroit just been coming up all week. Detroit.
So that's the 313, right?
What's
On episode 7. Right? Because the 313 is the circle 7 on the cover of the Moorish Quran. And it got the 4 gates open.
Okay.
Which is north, east, south, and west. Or north, east, west, and south, if you want the news.
Okay.
So it's coded. Remember, everything that the ones before us did, they left some kind of code in it for us to put this shit together at the end. The 313 was a code. It was called an area code. The area code is the telephone code to the city or suburb that you live in, right? So it's attached to a phone number, which is called a direct line. So the area code takes you to the area, and then the phone number takes you to a direct line in the area that the code access is open to. The 313 is the 7, because 3 + 1 + 3 is 7.
Okay.
G is the 7th letter made, right? Gomer, wisdom, geometry, geology, right? God, generator, operator, destroyer, metaphysics, right? So now we talking, what's the elder name? Man, his name eludes me. But he was the old Moor that used to tell us all the metaphysical information. Something ill. You know, You know what I'm talking about.
Talking about the one with the glass.
Yeah. And I can't think of the brother name right now. It'll lose me.
Yeah, I know exactly you talking about. Chakra going to the crop.
Mm-hmm. So he give us the metaphysics to the operating of the words that ties back into the translation of the numbers. The numbers is going to tell you the code sequence, and then the letter is going to tell you the spelling of the message. So you got every letter has a corresponding number, and the correspond. See Freeman Hill, that's the one I was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's him. That's him. Mm-hmm.
So the understanding of the Moorish saints, if you take the dogma out, you got something called Moorish Zodiac Constitution, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you got the literature from Taj from the Moorish Order of the Round Table, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you got CMB, Charles Mosley Bay, Clock of Destiny, C. Freeman Neal on metaphysics, and then you got Hakeem Bey on the indigenous connection to the Moors.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you know what they telling you, because remember, it's just as much in the message that's not being said as it is in what's being said. They call that reading between the lines. You know. So all of these things translate. So when you go in circle 7 in the 313, 313 reveals Detroit. Detroit is a French word that means straight. Right. Straight is a common name given to a short stretch of waterway that leads to another waterway. They call it a strait. So the strait, which is Detroit, because we call it Detroit, but the French pronunciation is Detroit. Detroit, Trois is a reference to the Pygmy tribes, but it's also a number in French, right? Trois means 3. So then you got the D in front of it, de trois, which means the third. Masonic message code is called the third degree. It's a Q&A to the public without restriction of who asked the question. They call that grilling you. But the grill is reference to putting you on a barbecue grill. You know, cook your ass with these questions. And then when you have somebody come in on the left bump, they call that peppering you from the pews, right? It's like they used to throw tomatoes at the minstrels. Now the Smash Tomato is a movie rating site, right? So when everything being connected, you travel through the stream of thought until you get to the destination. Where else do we see the circle 7? The nation of gods and earths, right? The 7 is the sun, right? The crescent is the woman, which is actually the earth, right? So they show you in the circle 7, in the 5% nation symbolism, the sun with the crescent, and then they show you the mother bending over the sun, right? Mama's son is my son, Mason. And we was crossing the Mason and Dixie line. And down in Dixie in the land of cotton. So we crossing the Mason-Dixon line from north to south, meaning we traversing from one governing tribe to another governing tribe. We moving from Cherokee Confederacy to Iroquois Confederacy. So you got 2 different tribal documents grandfathered in at the fall of America based on the Mason-Dixon line.
Now, because the reason why I was saying it, because I was thinking about Martin Lawrence. Martin Lawrence. I don't know if it was like shot in Detroit, but the theme of the sitcom is centered around Detroit, right? Then you got like Big Meech. Like it's a lot of things then dealing with Chicago, right? Dealing with Chicago in connection with Detroit. That's another connection. But let me roll some of these clips and then we can get into the nitty gritty because this about to get good.
Let's go.
If you got some interest, let's get to
Roll
it.
the corn.
They never taught us. From 1492 to 1775, America wasn't discovered, it was invaded. Not by one country, by 7. Russia came through Alaska. The Netherlands took parts of Canada. Britain and England worked both east and west coasts. France came up through New Orleans and the Gulf. Italy moved through Texas and Gulf territories. Spain invaded from the west coast down through Argentina and Chile and back up the spine of America. This wasn't exploration. This was a 283-year war, and the target indigenous Black Americans, the copper-colored, wool-haired people already here. They didn't come here to enslave Africans. They came to steal land from the indigenous. They just called us Negro to erase who we were. By 1775, we surrendered. We lost our right to vote, lost our land, and got renamed. They threw us on reservations if we submitted, and labeled us Negro if we refused. And now they act like we don't belong, like our story started on a slave ship. But the truth, the ships never brought us here. They were used to ship us out, erase us from this land. This war wasn't just physical, it was legal, paper genocide, land grabs, reclassification. The original Americans are now called everything but what we are. You want to know why we're struggling? Because we're fighting under false names, false history, and stolen status. It's time to correct it, learn the truth, reclaim your status. You're not lost, you were renamed, and now it's time to return. Please like, share, and subscribe. Give your honest opinion.
I think you've seen that one before. Well, let me roll this next one. That's a good one, though. Hold on.
Me, when I was...
Hold on, before I roll this next one, this is about an African who says, gives a storyline that he was told from his family. Now, listen to this. This is kind of interesting, Roy. Listen to this.
Me, when I was... I came here to, the U.S. when I was 7 years old, right there. For me, I would say, when we came, I used to hear, stories about, the transatlantic slave trade, I think it's called. And I used to ask my parents, actually, I used to ask them, why don't Black Americans look like us? That's the first thing. So I do know I wasn't wrong when I was a child. I wasn't wrong. And the second point would have to be one that Dane himself made, where are all the ships and all the boats? Yeah, it's not a ship, it's boats. There wasn't any ships back then. Where are all the boats that they used? And the third point is, if you look at Africans, or not all Africans, but West Africa, you won't find any stories that point to any huge slave trade. If it actually happened, there would have to be stories. If you go ask your great grandparents, if you're African, then they would tell you about white men arriving on the beaches and kidnapping people or forcing tribes to kidnap other tribes. But there's not really stories everywhere about that. So that's another thing that makes it.
Why would you kill off the natives to bring slaves from across an ocean when you could have turned the natives into slaves? Especially when most slaves in human history were prisoners of war. Why would a people steal people they don't like from Africa, free them, just to oppress them forever just because they're brown skinned? Why didn't the US government deport black Americans after they freed the slaves? Mexicans can be deported, but not the non-native black Americans you hate. If Native Americans were actually native, why didn't they fight for their rights on their own land during the civil rights movements with Malcolm X, the Black Panthers, and Martin Luther King? Why didn't Native American leaders step up to be assassinated fighting for their rights on land that was stolen from them by the government? Why, for the past 500 years, the biggest enemy of the US has been its own black American civilians and no one else? Why did the CIA cause the crack epidemic in the black community and no other communities? Why was the police created to catch only black slave runaways when there were other races enslaved along with black people? How does a small minority of a few thousand poor farmers from Europe have both the manpower and resources to enslave tens of millions of Africans, bring them to the Americas while simultaneously committing genocide against Indians, Mayans, Aztecs, Incas, Caribbeans, and the entire South America, colonizing Africa and fighting Africans all at once? If you believed your homeland was somewhere else, would you have a desire to overthrow the people in power? If all you have to be proud of is 500-year-old slave history, assassinated black leaders, and rap music, would you have anything to amount to? All this chaos is because of skin tone, right?
Hey, I bet you Dame Calloway behind that one. Hey, let me run two more, Rod, then we're going to go in. Let me run two more.
That went on in the Caribbean, a waterborne
I don't want to lose my train of thought, Elder. Hold on.
In the Caribbean.
Go ahead.
Okay, there's two things that need to be corrected. One is the drug trade didn't just affect us. Though we was the primary target, it devastated so-called white America too. Right? So we got to remember that part. The other thing that he mentioned is the oral traditions on the west coast of Africa does not support the slave narrative.
Right.
Okay, now, what the oral tradition of the West Africans is we didn't come from over there. They came from over here.
Right.
Right. And it's a lot of oral traditions, tribal oral traditions that said they came across the great waters to the west.
Right.
Right. So the out of Africa theory, you got to remember, is contingent on your center of education being Europe.
Right.
Right. He said one more thing.
About he said about the ships.
Yeah, the ships. So also, they found Viking ships from the contemporary time frame as the so-called slave ship. Matter of fact, they might even be older than the so-called slave ships, and they still haven't produced an intact slave ship yet. No shipwreck has been discovered of a slave ship. Now remember, they said a certain amount of ships was never making it to the destination. They was missing at sea. So you should have at least one shipwreck with the bones of Africans that was being brought over here. At least one.
Right.
In the course of the so-called 300 years that this was supposed to be taking place. Now, when you understand, going back to the first lady, the whole thing is a spin you around, get you dizzy, and then take the blindfold off and see if you know where you at. If they disassociate us from the land successfully and we believe we from somewhere else, you forego your birthright to your tribal heritage and your tribal inheritance. Right? So that's why they want us to believe that we all came from Africa. The people behind us want us to teach everybody that the United States is Africa. United States is not Africa. It's Atlantis. Right? And
that's right.
They don't want us to, like, for instance, somebody sent me a thing today about, it's one of my posts, somebody tagged me in and said, it was an AI generated Morocco, California, right? Mm-hmm. And it was saying before it was Beverly Hills, it was called Morocco. Right? All of these cities with Bible names, none of those cities was called that before 1492. All of those charters that named those cities is post 1492. So when we see biblical references, we trying to attach to the chosen people of God. We the chosen people of God because we the chosen people of this land,
That's right.
which is the chosen people of the matriarchy or the mothers, right? We only chose because the land chose us, because it produced us to be the caretakers. We are the antibodies.
That's right.
And the people that came is the virus.
That's right.
They suck blood. We wear wolves. Come on now. They say we look like kin, so they called us lichens. But we ain't them and they ain't us. We just look alike. Right? But we don't even really look alike. We just got the same skin pigment levels and the same hair textures, but we don't really look alike phenotypically.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know, one of us is from the land because we all got certain characteristics that's common to the tribes of the land. Mm-hmm. As they were being described during the whole invasion process, the first part of the invasion from 1492 to 1776. During that time, we wasn't encountering no pale faces.
That's right.
We was fighting Mongolians, Huns, and niggas. So if this is who we was up against, then how all of a sudden we end up fighting pale faces? Right? They had to make a classification in law called free white persons, but the description of that classification does not support the narrative of a skin color. So therefore, it must mean something else. In European, royals is called white people, no matter what their skin color is. Let that sink in. Roll the coin, Elder.
Carlos Linnaeus is a dude that you might want to go look up. He was the one that was instrumental in creating the black sociality, the white paradigm, and then they in 1790 during the Nationalization Act, they incorporated that in the United States. That white, 1790. We didn't even go by that over here. But let me roll a coin though.
Slave trade that went on in the Caribbean, a waterborne traffic. They didn't cross the Atlantic, but was going around in the Caribbean, was a very, very large flow of slavery. The estimate now is that over a period of 400 years, more than 2.5 million native persons, many of them from New England, were in slavery in the Caribbean. This is besides the Taino who lived there. This is another set. And this saltwater trade expelled them all over the Caribbean, to Little Bonaire and Curacao, to the many small Lucayas, to Hispaniola, and to Puerto Rico. In fact, one study done by Resendiz, which is called The Other Slavery, is that in the period between 1670 and 1720, from the Carolinas, South Carolina in particular, more Indians were exported out of Charleston, South Carolina, than Africans were imported into Charleston, South Carolina.
South Carolina in particular, more Indians were...
Every Native American tribe I've met, every federal petition I've met, all use Jim Crow and the Plecker Law and eugenics and all the different things to argue their federal petitions. They have to identify as Negroes to be recognized as an Indian tribe. Think about deep. That.
That's deep.
Southeast Indians that apply has to prove they have Negro in them to be recognized. Don't believe me? Look it up, check it out. My argument has always been to them, why is the Yamasi a problem? I can tell you why the Yamasi is a problem. Because we're the only tribe that look like we were identified. How do I fake being a Negro? They be like, oh, y'all pretendians. How do you fake being a Negro? This is a description of my people. How do I pretend to be something that I, quote, look like? But you're descendants of us. Let's do one better. They say Seminole, Seminole, Cimarron, Maroon. So I hear my Maroon brothers say, oh, we're Maroons. To them, that equates to African. No, it doesn't. Cimarron, runaways, wild ones, the runaways. And you'll hear Seminole people say, no, that's not true. Well, I got links in our IG that says, yes.
They don't want for that to come out.
They don't want that to come out. Because, see, they don't know. They're still following the same oppressors that they say oppress them. They're following their information. Most of the websites and information you get in Native American tribes that they say is oral tradition isn't oral tradition. It is a regurgitation of what the Europeans said.
It's written tradition.
Right? But when we look at the word Seminole, runaway, you're going to tell me that those you see as Seminoles today look like Negroes on a slave plantation. that the colonists couldn't mistaken them. Those were my Negroes. You're going to tell me that the slave narratives inside of the court documentation, the judicial system that they have within the Lord Proprietors, and all of the documentation that they have, which identified these as people as Negro that came off a ship, because that's what they did. They falsified paperwork. What do they call them? What is the terminology? I'm looking. I just had to come up with this the other day. Not the memoir, the manifesto.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, Aaron, he on it with the document.
I appreciate
so,
you.
That's gonna be you got it.
Yeah, thank you. So in the manifesto, it says from Africa, blah 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 blah. Right? So how do you, as this light-skinned brother, say that I look like my original people, I'm full-blooded, and you don't look like none of what they described your people as? But I can show you where the Creek people, all identified as Negroes. Matter of fact, I can even show you where books say the invention of the Creek Nation, which people hate when I do that.
Wow.
When I sat before Stephen Hahn and we had the 300th year anniversary for the Yamasee War, and the question was asked, it sounds like you're saying, what was the difference between a Creek and a Yamasee? And the man paused, and you could see him breathe like, I got to really answer this. He said there was none. Why? Because the Yamasee were identified as Negro.
Hey, Rod. Well, hold on. I gotta probably go to the next one because it's a lot of stuff right there. Now, on the first one, the first part, it talks about them kidnapping us from over here and shipping us to other places. Now,
so that's called the intra-American slave trade. You can look it up, and it'll show you ship routes and it'll show you land routes by which we was traded domestically. It's also called the domestic slave trade. Right? So you can see when they was taking people from New York to the islands, they was taking from New York to Louisiana, taking from Louisiana to the Carolinas. All that can be looked up under the intra-American slave trade or the domestic American slave trade. And it's like mind-blowing when you understand that it was more domestic trading in humans than it was over the seas trading of humans. And this is just the same, just like they got those ledgers talking about who left Africa. They got ledgers about who they took from one part of the land to the other. They have to keep track of us. They've been keeping track of us the whole time. We just didn't know it.
Right. Hey, Rod. So I read something where they said that they were enslaving the natives in the South and then sending them north west. So like if they were from Florida, they'd capture them and send them to Seattle, like later after they captured most of the land. But they were sending they was disorienting you by sending you to another part of the land, even though a lot of them, go ahead.
So a lot of that was done with children more than adults. When they capture the adults, they normally either put them in what's called isolated bondage, separate from the youth. Right? That's how they cut us off from our true oral traditions. And once they shut you off from the youth, they sending the youth to around people that speak different tribal languages than the tribe that he originally from. So he looked like an outsider to them. Right? And a lot of people didn't even catch in roots when Kuta Kinte was telling Fiddler about being from Africa. And Fiddler was like, well, we don't know nothing about no Africans.
Right?
Yeah, because it was telling you that they was domestically in bondage. Right? That was part of the war effort of what they called the 7 Nation War. Right? But when the British and the French begin to win the war, the Russians is the ones who gave us aid on the West Coast. But originally they was coming to colonize the Americas too. They stopped in Alaska. Right? So now you got Russia then took Alaska. The Spanish, which we had the biggest sea fleet at the time, they took on what's called a multilateral attack on the land. Right? So when you look at the where Alcatraz that you coming across the ocean and you could see the castle before you see the land. And it looked like it was just a castle on water until you got close and you seen it was on the island. And so you got the Spanish coming around South America. Then you got the French and the Spanish both attacking us in the Gulf. We got the Dutch, the Portuguese, and the English or British attacking us in the Northeast. Right. And we got to fight all these wars on multiple fronts. Now they're attacking the islanders, so we gotta support that war effort just as well. So now the islanders is fighting these people. The mainland north and the mainland south is fighting these people. We've been fighting them for 500 years. They have us believing that we just laid down when they came. That's just further from the truth.
Right.
The word Cimarron is the word that's from the Spanish that means runaway. Seminoles is a whole nother word. It's French. Semi mean half. Noles was the reference to the tribes over here. Right. So they was calling us mixed tribes because we had somebody from every tribe. So the French was calling us Seminoles, whereas the Spanish was calling us Cimarron, the runaways, right? But the runway or the runaway is really a reference to the ones that traveled the waterway, but we thinking they talking about somebody that didn't escape the plantation because of the rewrite of history, right? Because the ones who traveled the waterways, that was the runaways or runway, the same as a Madea Walker runway. And it was for a short stretch of straight land, right? They had a river run through it, and then you can attack them from both sides. We knew the waterways. You can tell who's telling the story by the word that they use. When they call it the Gullah Wars, we telling the story. When they call it the Seminole Wars, the colonizer telling the story. We knew who we was. And they knew who they was trying to rebrand us as. You remember, they came over for a drop of blood. What did the brother say you need to prove that you part of a tribe?
Negro blood.
Negro blood. Great melting pot. Will one drop of blood from us make you one of us? That was the whole gimmick to begin with. That was the trick, because they knew the law of the land. If we adopt a foreigner and raise them, we have to have a suitable mate for them. So they got to marry into a family. They just can't be sitting on the land. You got to be tied to the vine. The vine is the old Mississippians. The vine to the root. Roll the corn now.
All right, let's get it.
The deadliest war in American history ain't what you think. It wasn't the Civil War, it was King Philip's War. 1675, the Wampanoag, led by Metacomet, aka King Philip, had enough. The English colonists were breaking treaties, stealing land, and reclassifying tribes. So the indigenous rose up. One of the bloodiest wars ever on U.S. soil. Over half the New England settlements attacked, thousands dead on both sides. But what they don't teach you, this war wasn't just survival, it was resistance to colonial reclassification. By 1678, tribes were exterminated, enslaved, or erased. The paper trail became the blueprint for U.S. Indian policy. Follow this case. Hit that plus button.
For the indigenous people of this land, the Chinese came in, mixed in with them, and produced what you're calling Native Americans today or Indians. And the Caucasian gave them all of our rights. Right. Now they're walking around saying Cherokee, Choctaw, Shinnecock, Cheyenne, and we're walking around saying African, African, African. And they know that the Native Americans, the Moroccans, mixed in, the Native Americans and the Moroccans mixed in, and that's what's sitting here. And that's why some of you got wavy hair, some of you got nappy hair. And some of y'all got big lips and some got thin lips and some got slant eyes. That's why some of y'all are light skinned. That's why you're all mixed up. It's a melting pot of our genes. But that's who they genetic trait that I am Yamasi, Washita, Cherokee, Creek, Seminole, as well as Moor. Prove that. You follow that? And then you take that, not here. You don't go to his court. You go to the international courts in Geneva. And the first thing you put forth is a statement, I am an indigenous person. Stop saying anything other than that. What is your nationality? I am a Moor. If any of you people have listened to me and went to any professional office and said it, you saw the reaction. You saw them go, we have white, Asian, Negro, and other. Well, put more in place of other. Well, aren't you a Negro? No. You see them fall apart, but you'll see them write it down. I can show you the part, but you'll see them write it down because they know it's the law. Because they have a philosophy that if they break one treaty, none of the treaties they make it to be trusted. That's in Congress. And they made a treaty with you as a Moor. They didn't make no treaties with you as Negroes or slaves. And when the Caucasians started making rules and regulations, he was concerned with the African slave trade. He didn't care nothing about the Moors who came from Morocco, right? He didn't care nothing about the Moors that came from Mauritania. He didn't care nothing about the Moors who came from Senegal. He didn't care nothing about the Moors who came. All he was concerned with is niggas from Niger, which he called the Ivory Coast. He called them niggers, nigger, negrito. And they flipped the coin in the Latin-speaking world and gave negrito the respect when morenos used to have the respect. And then they call them negrito morenos, which is black or more. You see them fall confused. It was done. So a person.
Let me say that again. The whole history of America is the history of rich white men telling not rich white people that their enemies are black and brown. It starts in the colonies of what would become the United States. Let's remember, during the colonial period, mid-1600s, there was no such thing as white people. I know some people who are now called white find that shocking, right? Because they think whiteness is real, right? But whiteness was created. Europeans didn't call themselves white. We didn't call ourselves white. We weren't all members of one big happy family. Are you kidding? Have you studied the history of Europe? The history of Europe was about killing each other. That's what we did in Europe. We just killed each other before we figured out there were other people to kill. We just killed each other, right? I mean, that was the history of Europe. The English hated the Irish, right? Northern Italians didn't even think that Southern Italians were Italians. The Germans hated everybody, and everybody hated their ass right back, right? There was no team called white, no race called white, but all of a sudden, in the middle of the 1600s, there was. Why? Why was it suddenly necessary to create this thing called the white race? Well, because rich people can count, that's why. And so rich folks looked around, the ones that owned all the land, you know, in the colonies, the colonial elite looked around and they realized something, that they were heavily outnumbered by African enslaved folks, by European indentured servants who were just one level above a slave, or other Europeans who weren't technically indentured servants, but they were still peasants, didn't have any money, didn't have any land, and they could do the math. They added it up, and they were like, damn, we got to figure out a way to split these folks apart from one another, or they're going to rise up and take our stuff, right? Because after a while, these black folks who were enslaved Africans and these quote-unquote white folks who were poor Europeans are going to figure out they're all getting played by these rich people, right? So ultimately, the rich figure out they got to come up with some way to get somebody in that group on their team. The easiest thing is to get the poor Europeans, right? Because at least they look like you. They sort of share some of the customs and the culture, so they all...
Native Americans, you asked for proof, here's your proof.
Here's the hard truth. The United States doesn't know what to do with black people because it refuses to admit the truth about itself. It's like a man who keeps tripping over the same step in his house, but instead of fixing the step, he blames his shoes. That's how America continues to treat racism. From the auction block to the school to prison pipeline, from redlining to mass incarceration, the pattern is clear. Systems with built-in racism. It's not a glitch, but it's the blueprint. And yet every time someone tries to speak the truth, the system covers its ears and cries, reverse racism, or that was a long time ago. Black people have been told for centuries, assimilate, but don't lose your culture. Speak up, but don't make us uncomfortable. Succeed, but don't succeed too much. It's the double bind of being black in America, constantly judged by rules you didn't write in a game that you were never.
And I never knew I was any different for a long time. On any given Sunday, go with Loretta Guest to the Indian Baptist Church in Seminole County, Oklahoma, and you'll find red and black Seminoles praying together, singing hymns in Seminole, sharing meals and catching up on tribal news. Walk with her through the Indian cemetery out back, and you'll find their ancestors are buried together as well.
My aunt is next to him.
Were there any distinctions made as to, you all are the black Seminoles, we're nice to you, but you're the black Seminoles?
No, no, nothing like that. We've always been treated as one to another. No difference at all.
It was an alliance that began more than 300 years ago in Florida when runaway slaves and different Indian tribes sought
I saw a clip that said Europeans have never been civilized. Well, what about the stuff we built? No, civilized, as in you have gone a prolonged period of time without attacking someone else or even each other. All right? Why did Washington say stay out of foreign wars? Because that's all they did their entire history. How they like, oh, the United States has only had like 3 or 4 years without war. Europe don't know they don't know a month without war. There's always some fighting going on between these people. Do you know what slowed it down? It used to be really bad. Are you ready for this? You know what slowed down them killing each other? I gotta look it up, but I think it was Pope Innocent. And he said, turn your swords from each other to the Holy Land. And he started the Crusades. So go kill those people and stop, so y'all stop killing each other. These are the people we're dealing with. Know your history. Know your history. That's why I just be looking at them when they talking.
After 300 years together, the chief says the tribe wants them to either prove they're Indian or get out. What are you hoping that the black Seminoles will do now? Are you hoping they will just pack up and go away?
I would hope so.
So if they're black and they can't prove that they have Indian blood, go away.
Basically, that's what we're saying.
Say they're just as much Seminole as he is.
I fished in these woods. I hunted in these woods. I went to stomp dances just like the regular Seminoles did.
Through the Indian cemetery out back, and you'll find their ancestors are buried together as well.
My aunt is next to him.
Were there any distinctions made?
Hey, so yeah, you see that the chief, the $5 chief saying that he don't want the real natives around no more.
Okay, now, if you notice how they've been in close proximity for 100 and some years,
right?
You think they kids ain't married each other?
Right.
Now, the culture, they not telling you the reason why they together. Remember, I told you in the Trail of Tears, they should be telling the people in the South the Indian train coming.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, I'm not getting on that.
Yeah.
And then they reclassified them as Negro. Well, some of us left and went with the ones that was being trained in the boarding schools, the Indian training schools.
Mm-hmm.
That's when they mixed us together.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason why those two tribes lived in close proximity because the Mongolians took sides with us.
Mm-hmm.
So they got pushed on the reservation with us. The ones who didn't take sides with us, you can look at them and see they Huns and Mongolians. And then they get special treatment from the government that these other tribes don't get on these other reservations. You can tell by the reservations who the tribe on the reservation took sides with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The reservations that don't got nobody that look like us on it, them the ones took sides with the government, especially if they live in lavish. Right? Then you got the ones that intermarried so much you can't tell one from the other. So they just on the reservation is one phenotype, but they still the merger of two different groups. Right? Any reservation that's in poverty didn't go with the government's narrative. They was forced there.
Right.
Anyone that's been living lavish for the last 100 and something years, building casinos and shit, The government helps them build those casinos.
Right. Right.
Think about that. So we fighting with the Mongolians and the Huns, but all of them not against us. But some of them is.
Right.
Right. And the ones that's against us, they can get it just like anybody else against us can get it.
Right.
You know, so they not running up in the projects deporting nobody. They running up on reservations deporting people to Asia. Why is they doing that if they from here?
Right.
Right. That was the consequences of reversing the birthright citizenship.
I got another question for you, bro. Because it seems like when I started studying the runaway narrative, the slave narrative, and then I saw when they attacked their Yamassis, when they start raping their women and children. When the Yamassis start fighting them, they even call other people, other tribes to come help them fight against these parasites, essentially.
Yeah, we was all fighting. We was all helping each other to fight them. We was lending soldiers from tribe across tribe. In today's understanding in our community, this is what it'll look like. Vice Lord call up a GD and say, "Hey man, we fighting these colonizers. We need y'all help."
Yeah.
Right. Then the GD pick up the phone and call some Bloods. "Hey, Blood, we need y'all help." So all of the tribes are sending soldiers across tribes based on the type of warfare that was being fought in the particular conflict. That's how they determine who would be sent where. Mm-hmm. Notice they talk about runaway slaves escaping to the north, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now remember, more people left the south and went southwest than they did north.
Right.
They was going back to the motherland to recruit more tribes. That's what that was all about. They wasn't running away from no goddamn slavery. They was going to get some reinforcements. That's why they don't want you to know about the ones. Texas wasn't part of the transatlantic slave trade in American proper because it wasn't America yet.
Right.
Right. Texas probably been an American country just over 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
The same with California. That wasn't part of America. That was all Spanish America. Spain had claimed that land for themselves in 1492 under the edict from the Pope. Remember, they had a red line drawn in the map, and the Pope said Spain get everything west of this land, and it went straight up to Mississippi.
That's right.
Right. So Texas fell under the jurisdiction of Spain, and then the French needed a stronghold. So they attacked New Orleans and got Louisiana from Spain as a territory. This is how they end up being the protectorate of the tribes that all covered under the Louisiana Purchase. When you look at the Louisiana Purchase, this was the largest part of the land grab because this took everything west of the Appalachians, east of the Rockies, north of the Gulf, all the way into what we call Canada today. That was all part of the Louisiana Purchase. They cut Canada off and gave it the name Canada to maintain the illusion of the English as being a threat to the British, and they're the same people.
Right.
Right. So they put the United States under English control and they put Canada under British control because Britain controls England. I mean, shit, it's the same shit.
Right. Same.
Right.
Yep.
But so they got the same QSIP number. If they're two different countries, how do they get the same QSIP number?
Go ahead.
Right. So that was all part of the illusion. Remember, the Louisiana territory consisted of something called the Northwest Territory, which became your Midwest region. They had something called your lower Appalachians, which became Kentucky and Tennessee. And then they had your Great Plains states. That gives you your Dakota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Nebraska, and those states. Then you had your Pacific territory. Pacific territory was when they, after the Lewis and Clark adventure, when they surveyed the land and laid claim to Washington and Oregon. Right? So now they got the land in sections. In the military, they call that gridding off the territory for the invasion. We ain't know what they was doing because they was fighting a different kind of war. Right? They was using gunpowder. So we started making bullets.
Hey, you know something too, Roy? I noticed that when they got through fighting under some of your masses and they kind of like conquered them a little bit, the ones that said, you know what, we ain't gonna stay here because they was using the doctrine of discovery, Papist bulls to enslave us with, right? So one group said, you know what, we're gonna just go, we ain't gonna stay here where they overpowered us. We're gonna just leave and go down and help, join with our other brothers. And then these U.S. colonizers said that, they runaway slaves because they were natives that they wanted to enslave. But since they didn't want to be enslaved, they said they were runaway slaves. Right. And then they even go ahead.
Let's go to the migration patterns of the tribes in the early years of the colonization. The migration patterns of North America went from south to east. Other tribes. Right. Now, the other migration pattern came from the south, coming out of what we call today southern Mexico. They came north and then they went east. So when I look back at the history of the tribes, as I understand it, there's something had to be a great pull to make southern tribes and northern tribes converge on southeastern United States, what we call today Florida territory. Right. Remember, Florida and Louisiana was the same tribal government. Right. Louisiana is French for land of flowers, and Florida is Spanish. So they split it. King George put Georgia there as a military buffer zone to stop the tribes from going into Florida to support the Gullah War. Right? You got to go back and read why they setting up Georgia. Right? When you understand why they setting up Georgia, you say, well, why would they do that? What would you need to do this for? Then you realize it was a military campaign. If you don't know military strategy and how military operates, you'll never figure this shit out. The only way you can figure it out is if you understand warfare. So you heard my man saying that they had to create whiteness in order to divide the Po crackers from the Po Negroes.
Yeah.
Right? Divide and conquer, military strategy 101. Right. Never let two different people that you oppressing become allies, because now your threat has just doubled in size, which gave them triple the force. See, so they don't want us to recognize who was the oppressed. Yeah, remember, most of the pale faces came over here in bondage. They didn't come over here free.
That's right.
This is a common historical known thing that when the Europeans started being brought over here, which wasn't until the 1600s, mind you, we had already been fighting the Spanish and the French since 1492.
Yeah.
So it's not until 1619 that with the Jonestown invasion that you get your first set of pale-faced Europeans arriving in the Americas.
And I think it's later than that. I think they came it was a sprinkle of them working as servants to these dark-skinned guys. I don't believe
they still got their contracts. They came over as indentures, but the way that they would do the indenture keeps them in lifelong servitude because they kept them in what's called perpetual debt. Right. this is why if you go study maxims of law, it says that the slave is in debt to the slaver. Debt equals slavery, right? So they keep you in debt, so they keep you owing them, so you constantly working to pay them off. And that's the same application that they use with the sharecropping agreements. But first they had to marry off the big mamas before they kill her so that they could, her new husband could take the land. Because we didn't believe in selling land and you wasn't going to get it from none of us. So who sold them the land? Right? So when you go back and look, you heard Malachi had to correct himself, right? When he said native Moors, then he said natives and Moors. So this is what we was fighting. We was fighting conquistadors, Huguenots, and gentry. Right? They came over as black Jews. They became lightened up in whitewashing the history after the 1600s. This is why when you see picture of George Washington or Abraham Lincoln, they lighten them up for you to believe that they was something they wasn't.
That's right.
Psychological operations, man games of war. All war is based upon deception. So who's deceiving who? And how does it work?
Hey, it was a case we talk about the Dred Scott case, right? But it was a case before Dred Scott with this dude named Williams. I can't think of his last name. Garner. I'll think of his last name in a minute. But Abraham Lincoln would represent him. And he had the same type of case as Dred Scott, but he won his case. I'm gonna end up doing an AI tape on it. Oh yeah, they remonetized my page, but they was about the AI tapes, right? But when they seen how I make the AI tapes, they said that the ones I do that's cool. The way I do it is cool. So they said it was a computer error that caused my page to get picked up with the rest of the pages that they looking for. So that's what it was. But it's back up now.
As long as they straighten it out, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, but you know that what I was saying that. All right, let's get into this, man. This is my next questions about the paper genocide in Walter Plecker, 1924, and you know the reclassification.
The paper genocide go all the way back to Andrew Jackson and the Trail of Tears.
Go ahead. Let's go in.
All the paper genocide is calling us on paper something different than who we is. 90% of all tribal names are exonyms. They were not tribal names. Them was the names. Like if you go look up the etymology of Cherokee, it's gonna give you Anahuac in another tribe, right? Because that's called the mother tribe of the Confederacy, meaning that they are the tribe that hatched the Confederacy or the alliance of other tribes that fall under the Cherokee structure. It's multiple tribes involved in the Cherokee Nation. It's not just one tribe, but it was a political apparatus used to negotiate treaties for the warring factions. So the tribes in the Northeast formed the Cherokee Confederacy or the Cherokee Constitution or documents of governance, because they had to interact with these people that we call colonizers today. Right? So in the South, they formed what's called the Iroquois Confederacy. Right? The Iroquois is a series of tribes that fall under the Iroquois Confederacy. Iroquois is not the name of a tribe. It's the name of a confederacy of tribes, a collection of tribes. Right? Then you got the 5 boroughs. That's called a 5-family treaty. That's why you can't get the New Yorkers out of New York. They don't want to leave New York because that's been their home for thousands of years. So when somebody telling them this is Manhattan now, that don't mean nothing to them. They from the land. It's the same with Chicago, right? But we didn't know in Chicago, as in New York, the movie warriors, right? Listen to Osiris' speech at the beginning of the movie, because he's telling you about our tribes being turned against each other, but he's talking in the sense of gang culture, which is street culture, which is tribal culture living off the land. So that's how they came up with the guidelines of stuff called crime. Crime is anything that you naturally do that they have not yet monetized. If they haven't monetized it yet, they pass a law in order to monetize it. And they used to try to take whatever, once they pass a law, they used to have a habit of, when they make the new law, making the people that did it before the law was passed punishable. So they came up with something, a doctrine called ex post facto violation. That means that if they don't like what you're doing, they can't stop you from doing it right now because it's not against the law. But when they pass the law for it, if you stop doing it, then they can't prosecute you for what you did before they passed the law. That's an ex post facto violation, which means that it's a violation that takes place after they posted the law. Right? So most of the laws, they got so many laws on the book. Everything you do, break a law somewhere in this country every day, knowingly or unknowingly. 99% of them is unknowingly. They did that on purpose, and that's why they got as a maximum law, ignorance of the law is no excuse. You can't be exempt for the law for your ignorance, right? But once you become aware, you could do better, but you can't do better if you don't know better. But they don't care, because they make the laws to capture the ones not involved. Most of us don't realize that 99% of the tribes have no contracts with these people, no treaties with them, right? We don't want nothing to do with them. We want their whole shit gone. Most of us don't know that they called the tribes outlaws. Let's go back to the Dred Scott case. The difference in the guy you was talking about, Abraham Lincoln represented, and Dred Scott is Dred Scott from the land. The other guy was an import, right? And the import got the relief of the government. We do not, they law don't supposed to apply to us. Because we was here already. You can't come in and tell me how to live in my house. The problem is they used that uniform system of what they call law enforcement and judiciaries, judges, to give it the appearance of legitimacy in order to make you be obedient to their authority. It's the same as people got white coat syndrome. The doctor said it must be true. You got cancer. You didn't have cancer before the doctor told you. Now psychosomatic illness sets in, and all of a sudden you got cancer for real because you believe the doctor over your own self.
Yeah, that's right. That's a fact.
So this is why they tell you that you're not a scholar if you don't have any alphabets behind your name, because there's no way you can learn anything on your own accord. Right? But I beg to differ, because I'm an undercover scholar. The shit that I know will make your ass holler. Hello.
Hey, when do you think they came out with this slave narrative? Because I don't see it coming to the 1800s. I mean, like we came from Africa, slave narrative. They was enslaving us when they came over here, we know. But like, when did they say, okay, all right, we're going to start not only
First they had to develop a term for the bondage system that became known as slavery. Slavery is really Slavic.
That's right. That's a fact.
Because the word slave is a Slav from Yugoslavia. When they was fighting the people from that region, those people were Northeast Asians called Huns. This is why some of the $5 Indians look like Huns and some of them look like Mongolians. Right. Because this is the Byzantine kings is fighting them. Rome is fighting them. Prussia's fighting them. Prussia used to be a part of the Hun Empire, where the Khazarians at, but they was conquered by the Moors. The Moors whooped their ass after Genghis Khan died and pushed they stronghold further into the east. And then that became known as Khazaria, where your Khazars come from, which is your Ashkenazi.
Right.
Right, which is your fake Hebrews, your mulatto offspring of the Moors who married the concubines whose children didn't have a birthright, so they put them in charge of banking.
Right.
Because they don't own that, but they can live off the bank account. It can buy the expenses out of the petty cash drawer. Because they caretakers of the estate.
Yeah, right. The cross, the Red Cross.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get into some more of these clips, man. So then we can then we'll just
roll the corn.
All right, we got it right here. We was right. I think we was right.
I saw a clip that said Europeans have never been civilized.
Well, we're going to give you all the details because he said it all right there in that clip. But the 1866 treaties, I want you all to know a little bit more about that. That the 1866 treaties refers to a series of post-Civil War treaties, particularly those with the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw Creek, and Seminole nations that addressed the issue of enslaved Native Americans, also known as freedmen. How many of y'all know that some of our people go by that term freedmen as well as FBAs for reparations, who have been freed by the U.S.? This is important, Black family, for us to understand it. There are multiple articles on that, and I want you to do your research from very authoritative sources that verify the very thing that I'm referring there and the thing that Dr. Claude Anderson says as well. Of course, I like to remind us on a regular basis that Dr. Claude Anderson, among many other undeniable and unmatched credentials, he was appointed by Jimmy Carter and worked in his administration. So this man understands how to work, how the powers that shouldn't be work behind enemy lines. So don't tell us what the government can and can't do. Hush.
Treaty was a New York treaty about 1516 that came in. That was one of the first treaties. But in every one of those treaties that they set up with the Indians, they put an inclusion in there saying this, that if you were to cooperate with us and be able to help us maintain the slavery system we set up in this country, you know, and we will reward you and compensate you. We'll give you clothing, we'll give you food, we'll give you weapons, you know, and we'll even call you civilized if you will help us maintain slavery. Every treaty contained a clause to help Indians to shut down black folk. Slavery could never have existed in this country and been maintained without the full participation of the American tribes. That's why they started calling them civilized, Rock, because they began to say, you quit hunting in the woods and running wild and get yourself some land and get yourself some slaves. So Indians became slave hunters, slave traders.
Hey, so Raw, let me ask you this, because I think they got that backwards. I think that they was enslaving us and that they had brought this other crew in, this crew that was still starting to replace us. So they talk about how when I was listening to Seminole, when Andrew Jackson was on the scene, they was importing a lot of people into the country during that time, 15,000, 20,000 people. And then all of a sudden they pulling off some kind of Indian removal act after you import all these people. And then say that they owe these guys are the guys and these guys are slaves. So
yeah, it was so fun. That go back to David Walker's appeal.
Okay, go ahead.
Right. Remember, David Walker is writing his appeal. He's putting this out there for the chiefs, asking them, who is these people in bondage on the land?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So slavery was foreign to our culture. Because when we took people in, we made them part of the family. We didn't believe in working you like a slave, right? We didn't believe in brutalizing people. We had a common courtesy among each other, which existed among most of the tribes, right? You had a few of the tribes that we didn't really mess with because they were more hostile to outsiders, so they was more secluded, which made them easy for the European to conquer. Right. And so it wasn't that they didn't have anything to do with the slave trade. they was dealing with people who traded in slaves. If you go back, it's a book called Moors and Masonry. Before they was calling them slave auctions, they were called ransoms. And they would capture people of status in time of war, and they would ransom them back to their tribes or a neighboring tribe.
Yeah.
This ransoming of these significant tribal people later became slave auctions.
Bail bondsman.
Yeah. Because once you capture them, whoever put the bounty on them, because you got to remember, the bounty is the result of the warrant.
That's right. The warrant. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Rod.
Which is the ongoing declaration of war. In order to make us not form a tight-knit unit of resistance, they only wage war on us one at a time and pluck us out of the community one at a time.
Damn.
That way, we never see what's being done to us. It's
like
savvy warfare. So the Cherokee end up realizing what was being done with the slave trade. And remember, head of household was called the master of the house.
Mm-hmm.
We believe when we see master that means slave master. That means head of household. That's all it means. So you look up a lot of these census records by the head of household, which is the father or the mother, they'll say master. Right? But then they list their offspring as the slave. This is how you get your slave narrative incorporated into history. Because now, if you live in this house under this master's authority, you his slave. Now they have to give a definition to the word. It don't mean Slavic no more. It means one who is in service of another. Secondary definition is changed from its original form. That's why etymology is important.
That's deep. That's deep. I got one more. I got this one right here. Let's roll this
Day
one. This is a
two
good
of
one.
talking about shit you're not supposed to talk about until I get banned. You know about the Emancipation Proclamation? How it freed the slaves? Yeah. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, right? Abe Lincoln? Abe Lincoln freed the slaves, right? No, it was the Gullah Wars. My favorite show when I was a kid was Gullah Gullah Island. Gullah Gullah Island. Benya, something like that. The goddamn Gullah Wars is where some runaway slaves teamed up with some like Native Americans, and they fought the United States military, like the Army and the Navy. They fought them. They won. They fought them and they fucking won. How did they pull that off? Is that not crazy as fuck? How did some slaves team up with some Native Americans and beat the United States military? What the fuck? I mean, it was like the Native Americans clearly had a reason to want to fight and team up and get some help to fight the military.
Hey, this is a question I got for you off of that, Ron, because like he separated the slaves from the natives, but really the slaves that he's talking about were enslaved natives. They land had already been.
No, they just came from another part of the land. They used the runaway slave narrative in order to justify the division of the tribe, so that we won't know that it was a whole lot of tribes involved in fighting them Gullah Wars. They want us to believe that it was only one tribe, but then they had a group of runaways that joined on with the tribe. That's some BS.
Right.
When you look at the migration pattern and you see we was all going to, at the time of the Gullah Wars, we was going from the north to the south, back east. We was coming from the south to the north, back east. We coming from South America. You got islanders. If you look at the conclusion of the Haitian War, you see that the Haitians that left went to two places. The Conjure people went to New Orleans to aid and assist in the breaking of the Conjures, because we was using Conjure magic as well in fighting these wars. But you had the foot soldiers leave Haiti and go to Florida as a support for the Gullah War. That's the easiest migration pattern for you to see that we knew we was fighting this war on all fronts.
That makes sense, Raw, because if you study the next pattern, the next migration pattern is when we migrate back home. That's during after they so-called Jim Crow era, right?
That's called the Industrial Revolution,
right?
And the Great Migration. That's what they call it in American history when you're studying it.
Right.
And the justification was the industrialization process supposed to be creating jobs for people to leave the so-called plantation. Now remember, slavery supposed to be over.
Mm-hmm.
And they creating jobs in the North to leave the plantation.
Right.
For us to leave the plantation. Why we on the plantation before we migrate? And then if it's a plantation, who plantation is it? Those was family farms. We gotta get this victim mentality out our head, because as long as we believe we was the victims of somebody else's servitude, we don't realize that we ain't never stopped fighting. The war evolved. And then it got down to the 1900s. Noble Drew Ali see the problem, Marcus Garvey see the problem, and then they put us on a path, a trajectory from the Red House and the Blue House of masonry in order to see what's being done in secret and expose it in the public. Right? They got to give us an opportunity to discover what they're doing to us so that they don't suffer the karmic retribution of being an oppressor. So they always put it out, but they put it out as fiction, as satire, right? As theater.
Hey, Rob, my next question, he said that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. Well, we know Abraham Lincoln then freed the slaves. He just put them over to Congress, right? So could you go in on that? They still teach that in school today, that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves.
The original meaning of emancipation before the secondary meaning of emancipation being a synonym for liberation, which is two different things. The original meaning of emancipation was to transfer from one to another. You emancipated from your possession in order to put it in somebody else's possession, or you emancipated from somebody else's possession in order to put it in your possession. A proclamation is a public statement. It's an oral statement put in the public domain. So they was telling you then that they was transferring ownership from the private to the public, from individual slave owners to a slave government. The government owned all the slaves. Who do they consider the slaves? Everybody that's on the government. Everybody that's under the governmental lines of demarcation, the grid that they created as military zones. Them states ain't states because they was territories first. You gotta remember that. A state means a static position in military. You got to look at static positions, mean this position and this is going to always be watched over by this group, this battalion, right? This branch of government or branch of military. So they give you a grid pattern, and then they tell you they states, and each state got their own jurisdictional authority. You're either under the jurisdiction of the police, the sheriff, or the marshal, or the FBI, right? So once you understand how the military divisions work, then it starts to make sense to you. But as long as you are foreign to understanding military strategy and you don't play chess, you won't figure this out.
Yeah, it's complex. It's a complex conjure. It's a long conjure spell, a long spell to make us. So that the amnesia part, Rod, the amnesia. How long do you think it took them to get rid of all the people who knew and remember, and pretty much wipe our mind out and start us off with this African, everybody African. And
Look at how many people they lynched.
Yeah, that's right.
All of the lynchings, they weren't no average everyday Joe. Those were community leaders, head of households of families, right? Next in line to take over the head of household of families. They killed him, like, for instance, Emmett Till, Chief Littlehorn. He didn't even get to remember who he was before they murdered him. But he was starting to remember. He wasn't whistling at that lady. He was whistling Dixie, a war cry. And then they used the lady as the pretense for the apprehension of him because they had a warrant. Declaration of war against one individual, except it was unofficial. Mob rule, democracy.
Right. Hey, let me play this clip right here because it's based on something you just said. There was about the it was something you said a couple of things based on what this dude had said right here. He was explaining how we was on the land.
So the Yamasi people looked like the African people that they was capturing and putting into slavery. And we understood what slavery was, but we had a different form of it. Because we don't see people as something you can own. The Creator said that all of us are free. When we're born free. That means we have the right to choose, eat, drink what we want, do who, be who, whatever we like. The biggest violation that the British did was they captured our women, not knowing that our tribe is run by our women. We're a matrilineal society. The reason being because we've come to understand our mothers, the ones who give us life, are the most important tool and asset that we can have. Our mothers are our first teachers. They're the ones that protect us the first.
Yeah, so he was breaking down like about how we was a matriarch society and they came after our women at first, just like they if you go back to the new paradigm when they started creating welfare and then going after the women saying you can get rid of your man if you take, get this assistance from the government, we'll pay your rent. So they attacked the women based on what he said, starting, from the jump. Even if you go back to the Montaoka story that they made up, right? The Montaoka story. So it's like they always attack. They made that like they centerpiece to go after our women. But go ahead, right?
Okay, remember, they didn't just take the women. They married them. Had babies by them. Right? That's how you get control of the land. Under the tribal structure, you can only be the caretaker of a land if something happened to your wife. Right? And then you're supposed to appoint the next Big Momma as the head of household. But under the colonial system, they come from patriarchy. So when they take the women and marry them like that, and then when they murder them, poison them off, then they take control of the property. And instead of keeping the property in the family, this is when they go make their sharecropping agreements. This is why most of the head of house under sharecropping is always a man's name. The women didn't do sharecropping agreements. They just grew the crops and had the family farming the crops. They understood how to maximize the potential of the land. They didn't need no sharecroppers agreement. Right? Those foreign men who married our women, they didn't know how to maintain and run a farm.
Right.
So they was extravagant in their spending habits from Europe. Because over there they had money. Over here they just regular. Because they didn't got kicked out of Europe already. So that was the key point in the taking of the women and the children was the one they used to force labor. They wasn't using the adults for forced labor. Right? They had to start you off as a child under forced labor in order for you to continue it into adulthood. The re-education program.
Hey, Raw, I hear a lot of people that move to Africa because I was thinking about it a long time ago. I was thinking about, oh, I'll move to Africa before I figured out really what was going down. But a lot of native born Americans who don't know they think they Africans, right? They moved. I've been hearing a lot of stories, and one of them is JT. He moved to Africa, and he said as long as you visiting over there, they treat you pretty cool. But then once they find out you moving over there, where you staying over there, he said they treat you worse than in America. He said that because you're not really an African. Go ahead.
All other Africans ain't the same, just like all of us ain't the same.
Okay.
Some of them is like black Nazis over there to anybody that ain't from the continent. They don't want you there. I don't care where you come from. India, China, Europe, America, Australia. If you ain't from the continent, they don't think you need to be on the land. Then you got other people that's more liberal in their approach. As long as you come over there respectful, they don't mind you being there, right? And they don't mind how long you stay as long as you remain respectful of the local cultures. And this is what made the colonizer become hostile to the people that was like that, because they would allow them to come over there and they would lay the law down to them. Long as you stay to yourself under your own vine and fig tree, we don't mind you being here. But when you become disrespectful, then you're going to start war. So then you got your Boer wars, your Zulu wars, all these different wars being fought in Africa with colonizers during the scramble for Africa, because they not respecting the cultures of the peoples of the land, right? So even the liberal cultures over there became hostile to foreigners, right? Then you got to remember they leery of dark-skinned people too, because the Arabs that was kidnapping them and putting them in bondage servitude was just as black as them. We be forgetting that. Anybody don't believe it, all they got to do is look up Tipper Ted, the most notorious slave trafficker in world history that's on record. So yeah, all of the Africans are not complimentary to strangers from anywhere. Just like all of the tribes over here, in certain neighborhoods, that if you go in their neighborhood, you can't make it through their neighborhood without a mob talking about what you're doing over here. You got neighborhoods like that in New Orleans. You got neighborhoods like that in Memphis. You got neighborhoods like that in Miami, Orlando. You got neighborhoods like that in both of the Carolinas, Virginia, New Jersey, New York. You just can't walk through a neighborhood and you ain't from it. It's becoming more open now, right? Because now people are being trying to figure out what's going on the land. We know something is up, but most of us didn't know what it was until certain people started coming out telling the story. Now it's becoming common knowledge and easy to see.
Everybody great start clicking questions in just a minute. Hey, everybody hit that like button. We got about 1,500 people in here. Everybody hit that like button, y'all. If you want to show Chief some love on the donations, we're getting about around Christmas where you can send them grandbabies some gifts. We dropping that Cash App in the links every 5 or 10 minutes, and we're gonna be posting it every in a minute, so you can show your love on the donations. Hey, everybody hit that like button, man. Hit that subscribe button right now, man. We got about 1,500 people in here. We getting lit. Right, let's roll another clip, man, and see where we at right here. Okay, we got
most Americans don't know about Black Seminoles in exile. After fighting 3 wars.
So the Yamasi people.
People come up to me now too, and they say, "Can you speak Indian?" And they're like over 300 different tribes. Can you speak Indian? It's like saying, "Hey, can you speak Caucasian?" But that's the name they gave us, Indians. Indians was the name Christopher Columbus gave us, which is incorrect. He named us Indians because he thought he was in India, I'm sure glad he wasn't looking for Turkey.
Yamasee is these black folks who came before Columbus, who married into the native population or the Asiatic population who come from the West. Okay, and the Yamasees takes on the British.
In early America, you had a lot of the red Native Americans and you had the black Aboriginal people. And oftentimes, when there was a war going on between the European powers,
Yamasee people.
In 1715, the Yamasee and their allies rose up against English colonists in South Carolina. Years of unfair trade, crushing debts, stolen lands, and the enslavement of native people had pushed them to the edge. The Yamasee launched attacks on settlements along the frontier, burning plantations.
Before there was an America, there was a tribe of black warriors in the South. They were the Yamasee. And in 1715, they didn't negotiate with colonizers. They declared war. They fought the British in one of the bloodiest rebellions ever seen on U.S. soil. But after the war, they were erased, reclassified, disappeared from books. Yet their blood still runs through South Carolina, Georgia, the Gullah, and FBA legacy. They didn't kneel.
My cousin B, and we're at Flagler College for the Yamasee Conference. B, good morning. Can you explain?
The Yamasee were not a tribe. They were a nation, a vast black confederation.
In 1835, a column of U.S. soldiers.
Black Seminoles in exile.
Started in Florida.
If I mention the Seminole Indians, your mind probably goes.
Most Americans don't know about Andrew Jackson's invasion, which led to America buying Florida. Today, the First Seminole War. Starting in the early 1800s, Florida had been Spanish territory since the end of the Revolutionary War and became a safe haven for runaway slaves from America. In 1816, the U.S. would come to find out a community of escaped slaves had occupied an abandoned British fort in native Seminole territory. Brigadier General Edmund P. Gaines would launch an expedition to conquer the fort. During the battle, a gunboat would hit the fort's gunpowder magazine, causing a devastating explosion. In 1817, outraged Seminole natives would retaliate by attacking a U.S. supply boat. This attack would outrage the nation, who would send Andrew Jackson to quell native attacks. In 1818, Jackson invaded Florida with 3,000 troops, burning Seminole villages and capturing Spanish forts, despite Spain and the U.S. not being at war. At Fort San Marcos, Jackson even executed 2 British nationals, accusing them of aiding the Seminoles, escalating tensions with both Spain and Britain. Despite international backlash, Jackson's campaign exposed Spain's inability to control Florida. President Monroe distanced himself from Jackson's actions.
Now, hey, Rod, I seen a picture of Andrew Jackson, man. He looked like a mulatto, man. He looked real dark looking, like he looked like a mulatto to me, man. So why? Then with Thomas Jefferson, I think he was a mulatto. Jefferson and Abraham Lincoln. So what's up with these cats, man? Like they were mulatto Moors or something that Like, who are these guys? And because, like, Andrew Jackson, he definitely was a tyrant. Like, even when the court made the rules, which I think that was an act, he defied the Supreme Court ruling and still made us attack us. Created this act where he chased these people that they imported off the land, and then they paper genocided us, said that we were Africans and Negroes and colors, and that these new guys are Cherokees, and that they the real natives, and they deserve a little bit of piece of land up in South Carolina or this and that. So what is your take on that, man, on our replacement crew? Because we know about the Indian schools, right? The boarding schools.
And we already talked about that with the paper genocide. Andrew Jackson, when he was doing the Indian Removal Act, right? That's because they was clearing the land, trying to create a military buffer zone because Spain was getting their ass whooped in Florida.
Right.
Remember, when they when the American so-called government, these are English. When they are making an incursion into Florida, they making backdoor deals with Spain because this is how they're going to get the Florida territory. Right? So just like when the French got ran out of Detroit and they got ran out of Haiti, they had to go back home. Right? Which led to the Louisiana Purchase by the English. The English was never supposed to colonize beyond the Appalachian Mountains, but when they bought the protectorate rights from the French, then they assessed the land with Lewis and Clark. Then they decided that they was going to expand their salvage right far beyond the Appalachian Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how they setting it up, how they setting the stage for their incursion. We gotta remember the so-called founding fathers of the United States government as it stands now. None of them was from the land.
Right.
All of them was from somewhere else.
That's right.
And then the people that was from the land, like for instance, the real George Washington's from Barbados.
Right.
They replaced him with either the French-born George Washington or the Virginia-born George Washington. Now, George Washington is a general, but America not a country. What president made that nigga general?
Right.
Right. Under whose order are you the general?
John Hanson.
You see, so America's it's not a government yet. And he come in to become the so-called first president as General George Washington, taking on the role of the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the United States of America, because that's what the office is.
Right.
Commonly referred to by his corporate title, president. President is the way you call a CEO, but he's not a stakeholder.
Right.
He's just the person that's in charge of making the corporate decision. He's a president, a CEO. But the commander-in-chief of the armed forces is a whole nother thing. This is how Trump can be a wartime president ruling over the military at the same time Biden is the political president. Because one is the president in Joe Biden, the other one is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and he's a wartime president, so he can't leave office. That's what we already know this.
Right. Right.
So we believe that the legitimate government running was the Joe Biden government. It wasn't.
I believe that was a robotic government, man. I didn't see too many new videos of Joe Biden walking, and I say, man, this dude walk like a robot. You know what I'm saying?
Man, I told you that they use everything. They didn't use actors. They didn't use bots. They didn't use skin masks. They didn't use deep fake technology. All of that was to fabricate the theatrical appearance of a presidency under Joe Biden. But it wasn't real because Joe Biden was already gone.
Right.
He was be dead and gone, dead and gone.
Hey, y'all, drop y'all questions in the chat for Chief. Y'all, we gonna post them up for y'all so Chief can go in. Hey, but I got one more question for you while they getting their questions ready. Hey, Chief, what do you think? What do you see happening in 2026 with the U.S. government and just like with everything that's happening right now? And to me, it's like everything that we're saying is like happening, and people want to see it like it happened. Like, oh, why don't they go down today? Tomorrow, why don't they be there, right? But based on what's happening now, with the money, do you think everything will be like we'll be going into that reset by next year? The reset of this new system. Go ahead.
We in the middle of the reset right now. Remember, we at the last couple of sentences of the continuity of government FEMA document. And that was being enforced using the UNDRIP, United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, and the AMDRIP, the American Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. When you use those two documents together, both of them recognize your indigenous rights. Your rights is what you assert. Right? It's what you do in order to exercise who you are. So one of our rights was to use the oral tradition of the tribes in order to communicate across tribes, so all tribes similarly situated. That's in both documents that we had a right to our oral tradition.
That's right.
The oral tradition is predicated upon putting it in the public domain, and we use the judicial standard because of the strict nature of the standard, ensure that the public notice is properly filed. So all social media platforms meet the standard criteria in the judicial description of a public notice, meaning timestamps, archivable format in which it can be retrieved and verified. Right? Now, this time-stamped archivable format allows us to use that social media platform to put things in the public notice. When we give in the description of what happened to our people, by default, being that we are qualified chief, we become discussing the problem before the collective tribes, using the flat platform for the oral tradition to be expressed in a public notice restriction format. So notice the agent is notice to principal, notice the principal is notice to agent. So everything we do is subject to the law of the land, not the law of the sea. Because under the law of the sea, we have no rights that they respect. They told us that in Dred Scott. Right? So the only way we can get respect is to assert the territorial jurisdiction of the tribal right. We have a right to all tribal lands. It's saying in both documents. All of the land is tribal. So we had to reclaim the 10 square miles of Washington, D.C. So they put the totem pole in Washington, D.C. in 2017 to reclaim that as part of the collective tribal lands that we was reclaiming. It's all been done following the oral tradition, from Scipio putting the Pope on notice to the Pope repudiating the doctrine of discovery and the fruit of the poison tree doctrine in their legalese being applied. Everything that's built on the doctrine of discovery becomes null and void, as reflected in the letter that was written to Obama by Pope Francis the Talking Mule.
Yeah, 2014.
See, so it's all in the public domain. Now we put it all together and tell everybody what's been taking place. And now it becomes actionable by the collective tribes by consensus of common agreement according to the oral tradition. So all they got to do is just say, I agree with getting the imposters off the land in a collective format, and they got to go. Yeah. We all want them gone. I don't know nobody want them to stay. Right? And even the ones that's pretending to be us want the imposters off the land, even if it's them, but they don't know it's them. Mm-hmm. But you see it transpiring in real time. Every major city on the land right now have National Guard forces just outside of the city waiting to be activated. Now, why is that important? Because when the transfer of power takes place, the National Guard have to arrest judges. The National Guard has to arrest police chiefs and top brass and some of the officers that have been using the badge in order to do their dirt. They know who they all is. Mm-hmm. Then the rogue sheriffs, the frauds, they gonna be getting arrested by the real sheriffs, the ones that's properly put in a position, and we're gonna be watching this, talking about what the fuck is going on. And it's not too far off before they let it be seen. They didn't already rounded up the big fish. Now they gotta go bottom skimming in order to get the little small fries up and get them on out the way too, because we ain't finna leave none of them here if we can help it.
Yeah, I can see that. Somebody said that you see the reset ending before this end of this year. We got a couple more days? What, about 9-10 more days?
That's one of them things that if somebody tell you the day that it was gonna happen, they'll be making it up. And I'm not into making up information.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, we got the next question for you, brother. It says, with declaring your indigenous status, should a person get trust? Does trust still uphold their banking system?
No, you can do a trust outside of their system. You can also build a family bank, independent family bank outside of their system. They just don't want you to know it. That's why I've been telling this for about 5 years now. Now, when you go to Amazon, type in family banking, it used to only be like 2 books come up. Now you got a whole fucking stream of them. How to do family banking. Videos on YouTube. When I was telling everybody about it, you used to only be able to find like 2 or 3 videos on it. Now it's a whole list of videos on how to set up a family bank. Right? Because that's the only way to take your power back is you got to take control of every aspect of your life in all 10 areas of people activity. And the first one is economics.
Yeah, you know what? I remember now that you say something about that family bank. We had something like that in my family, but we didn't call it a bank. We call it a family pot. It is where my big mama kept all the money. Like people would give a certain amount of money every week out of their check to Big Mama. And then she would make a family pot. And then if anybody needed something, they would come get a loan from Big Mama out of the family pot and then just pay it back. So that's how we created Big Mama was the bank, really pretty much.
We also invented insurance.
Go ahead.
We invented insurance. Insurance and what they call policies. Policies became known as the numbers, but policies was the trade in insurance documents to have life insurance and for people to bury the dead. That started about what they was called back then. They wasn't called secret societies or brotherhoods. They was called guilds. They became later known as secret societies and brotherhoods. They was called brotherhoods back then too, though. They've been called brotherhoods longer than anything else. But that's where the insurance comes from. Big Mama always had a family bank. And just like you say, that all of the family would contribute. If one of us needs something, they go to Big Mama and she take care of it. And you just got to put it back. That's it.
Yeah.
There wasn't no interest. Interest is a foreign concept designed to be part of the inflation system through fractional reserve banking. If you look up fractional reserve banking right now, you'll find more videos on it than it was 10 years ago. It was even hardly talked about. But fractional reserve banking is how you operate a debt-based system to ensure that at the close of that system, you end up with all the substance and the people end up with all the debt. It's called fractional reserve banking. Now, it's attacking you on 2 tiers. It's attacking you through attrition model. Attrition means a gradual succession of a thing. The attrition model is to gradually raise the value or lower the value of the currency that increases the value of goods we commonly call inflation. That's called taking it off the top. Now, we also have taking it off the back. This is called taxation. So you trap between taxation and inflation. Inflation is sucking the money off as it grows. Taxation is taking the money as it come in.
Man.
So it's all trickery, it's all deception, and it's all fraud. And that's why we ended all their contracts, because they never entered the contract in good faith because they never upheld the contract they entered. All of their treaties are based on fraud. And the fraud is that they even signed them with the tribes. Half of those treaties, the tribes not signing those treaties. Those treaties between European powers on our land. We didn't have nothing to do with that. They made the agreement. We just got trapped in the blood right that stuck us in here fighting this war from the bottom.
I wonder what. Okay, here goes somebody right here. It says, Little Turtle, Chief Little Turtle.
I'm not familiar with that particular chief.
I think I heard a little.
Unless you're talking about Chief Little Horn when I was talking about Emmy, that might be what he talked about. But I'm not familiar with Chief Little Turtle.
I think I heard of Chief Little Turtle. Hey, what tribe is that? I think I came across that Chief Little Turtle before. I think it was was it an Apache tribe? But I noticed, man, every tribe was fighting for to stop getting their land taken. And it's like this. This is my question for you, Rod. And then we take this next question. What was the overall after they took our land? How did one a certain amount of small amount of people get the wealth? Because it seemed like to me our wealth, our natural wealth over here was shared amongst the tribes. Like everybody had, it was all of ours. It wasn't no, oh, this one dude owned all the cows. This one dude owned down there 2,020 million acres. How like now it's only a 1% of a group that own all the shit when we owned it as a tribe. And
they had to shut our banks down first.
Okay.
When they shut our banks down, we were still sitting on gold and coal in large stockpiles. Because I was in the north, the coal was a valuable commodity, and gold has always been valuable all over the world. It was for international trade, right? And silver, right? So the stockpiles we had made some of the families be wealthy when some of the elders liquidated the asset. Most of that was done in the 1900s with the repeal of the gold under FDR with the Federal Reserve Act. When they took over the banking system, and they declared it illegal to own gold. So a lot of people sold their gold to the banks. In order to get into the fiat system. So they was coming in with a financial backing, whereas a lot of us had to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps with no boots on.
Damn.
Right. So what did we start doing? We started creating penny stores. This is where your dollar store concept come from. The penny store, we go in there, was really, we used to call it the candy store a lot. But you go in there with a penny and you have to come out with a little small brown paper bag full of candy for a penny.
Right.
Now you can't buy shit for a penny. I ain't seen nothing that you can buy for a penny in a long time.
Man, I'm telling you.
Right. But you used to have what's called penny stores, and as inflation went up, then you had your 5 and dime, which is your nickel and dime store. Right. You went from your nickel and dime store to your quarter stores. Then you went to your 50-cent stores. Then now we at dollar stores.
Yeah.
The dollar is less than a penny back then. The penny back then was worth more than the dollar is today.
Damn, sure is.
Let that sink in. That's inflation. Right? That's how they skim the money off the top right in front of you, because they call somebody called the chairman of the Fed to come from overseas to America to tell you how much the interest rate is. A lot of them people making that shit up, sweetie. A lot of them making that shit up. But what they doing is they saying my great-grandmother or great-great-grandmother was half Indian. That make me 24%. That's how they come up with it. They don't really know.
Yeah,
because we didn't go by percentages. We said you was one of us or you ain't one of us.
Right.
We didn't have stepbrothers. You either my brother or you not my brother.
Hey.
We didn't have stepsisters. She was my sister or she wasn't my sister. That's all. And cousins, our cousin was my brother from my mother's sister. My sister from my father's brother. Them was siblings for us. We all was crawling around in Big Momma house, snotting at the same time.
That's fine.
Saggy diapers together. We were siblings to us in our hearts. So we wouldn't divide it like that. The hardest part was to bust the family up. Once they bust the family up, that's when they went to really work on us, and that was in the 60s.
Right.
A lot of those records was burned up, but if you run into a dead end in the 1800s, and wherever you run into a dead end, you look for a city hall fire, a library fire, or a courthouse fire. And that's how they was destroying the records that told everybody who we was and showed them where our properties and stuff was. But they had duplicates that went as far as DC. But the local record, so you can't prove it, was burned up. But the Library of Congress still got copies of everything they burned up. They know who we are.
They know exactly who we are. Somebody said, man, once another Big Mama, it's downhill for the family. The energy can't be replaced. That Big Mama.
It's a hard act to follow, but normally Big Mama had 2 or 3 of her daughters or granddaughters up under her so long that they know how to take the reins and continue that legacy. This is part of breaking up the family. So a lot of us, they want you to run off, marry somebody, and move to Europe so that you can't be Big Mama when your turn comes. That was all part of the game.
Yeah, Ibrahim causing up some stuff over there.
We love Burkina Faso and Ibrahim Traore, and that's all we got to say about that. Keep doing what he's doing. Tear their ass up. Get everybody else involved. Get all the tribes involved from all of the military gridded off countries that they divided up in the Berlin Conference. Keep doing what he's doing. We with that.
Yeah,
they only doing what they doing because we doing what we doing. We just using 2 different methods of fighting based on the condition of the colonizer.
And he really a product of what the natural process of what was already happening over there. They took out Thomas. They took out Thomas, and then it's like that energy just, when you take out 1, 2, 3 more people rise up that's stronger than that. It's just universal energy, universal law. So he just anomaly after a certain amount of time, and them from the South African apartheid all the way up to now, and that South African apartheid is like they form of them being colonized by the colonizers. And if you go look at pictures of those people, those guys were dark skinned, they actually were black in the mud. Them people, they had them out there digging with them Dutch was dark skinned people, man. Can't believe it.
Well, you got to remember, New York was first colonized by the Dutch. That's why it was called New Amsterdam. Right now,
they were some dark skinned niggas.
Yeah, so it was just a matter of time before one of us seen the selling out wasn't getting them nowhere, and because it wasn't getting them nowhere, shit, we might as well go and fight these motherfuckers. Because letting them have control of our resources and paying me to sit in my presidential palace and watch my people suffer, you had to, sooner or later, one of us was going to say, I wonder what the problem is and how to fix it.
Right.
It's just so happened that how his mama raised him and what he's seen going through his ranks in the military allowed him to understand that if we did sell out, we can be more powerful than all the sellouts combined.
Right.
So he don't want to negotiate because he don't want your money. Because he believes Burkina Faso can take care of Burkina Faso with the resources that Burkina Faso produce.
Right. I like most of everybody. It's like they get mad when we don't want them to bully us and colonize us. Oh, he getting
of course. You ever punched a bully in the nose?
No, I ain't never been bullied though.
Man, look, well, they will try you. I didn't punch plenty of them in the nose, and I'm gonna tell you this: they all gangster until you punch them in their snot box.
Right.
When you push that snot box back, 9 out of 10 of them bullies gonna curl up and cry. They not real fighting dogs. They not game dogs. They show dogs that just look game.
Yeah.
Until somebody chin check them.
Yeah.
Right. So, right. So when you stand up to a bully, of course he not gonna like it. Because you challenging his facade, the false image of toughness and strength that he put up to make other people intimidate, bow down, and serve his interests. Soon as you come along and smack him in his snot box one time, now all of a sudden, everybody looking at you, waiting on you to oppress them, and you refuse to do it. Now they love you and hate the bully.
Right.
They don't got to kiss ass to stand up. And then, you know, that's just the way it is. The bully don't want nobody taking his power from him.
I seen that scenario in The Godfather Part 2, I think it was, is when it was this guy that was like bullying the little Italian neighborhood, and then the Godfather took him out, and then he became the guy. But he wasn't as bully like the other guy, right? Bullying the people around. He was more of a
tyrant.
Somebody, the bully guy was a tyrant, but the Godfather was more like, if you got a problem with a bully, come talk to me. That's how Tookie was. Tookie didn't even like gang banging at first. He used to go beat up gang bangers for people. They used to come get Tookie to go beat up people. You know what I'm saying? It's like, these gang bangers took my jacket, Tookie and Rob took my money. And Tookie, they go get Tookie. Tookie say, where he at? Tookie go over there and beat him up. Just he liked it doing it, you know. And then eventually when he hooked up with Raymond, you know, he started they brought the Crips more to the forefront, but Tookie was more of the guy that beat up the bullies in the neighborhood.
That's who Jeff and King David, that's what they was in Chicago. They stopping the ones who had little taste of power from bullying the kids. That's how they all got their positions. All of them was bully beaters. Jeff, Mickey Caldwell, Big Bull, all of them, King David. That's what made Hoover so important, because he stopped a lot of bullying from people because they got what looked like a position of power. Especially when he switched us over to growth and development, and the ones of us that took that wholeheartedly and began to hit the books, we understand what's going on now. Brain banging to the name change.
People saying my sound low. My sound low, Rod?
Not to me.
Oh, okay. Maybe to somebody else. Hey, y'all hit that like, hit that subscribe button. We got Rod Cash App and his PayPal for the people that's in the London that don't be having Cash App. We got that PayPal up there too. Shout out my people in London, man. Shout out everybody for coming in and kicking it with us tonight. Like I say, show Chief some love for Christmas, man. I'll send him a Merry Christmas, man, on that donation, man. So on a Happy New Year, and you know. Hey, you got anything you else want to say, Chief? We had that 2-hour mark.
Not really, not particularly. You know, we was just whatever you brought up. Yeah, whatever you brought up, that's what we was talking about.
Yeah, we really was just chopping it up on Native American wars. It's kind of like it was another meeting similar to the last Big Momma meeting we had before Thanksgiving. So this is the before Christmas one, right? And so we just came already. He says, what does it means when a person pupils become almost non-existent? Right? You know anything about that?
You know what?
Their pupils become non-existent. Meaning, I guess they got an all white eyeball.
I didn't see people that didn't have pupils. They not normal. Most of them come from the mirror universe. They don't have pupils. So let's say they got brown eyes. It'll look like they got mud eyes. They won't have no pupil in the middle. So the brown will take a different look. And they can see in the dark like you see in the light.
Right.
But they don't have pupils.
Hey, shout out Empress ZZ Love 1919 for the super chat. She says, keep dropping that them gems, bro. Keep dropping them gems, increasing the knowledge. Appreciate you, boys. Yeah, man, we about to get up out of here, y'all. We're gonna be back with another one sooner or later. I'm redoing the whole channel, so we're gonna be coming with more of these podcasts, and wait till you see the new tapes that I'm putting out, man. Like I ain't just doing the AIs no more. I'm incorporating AI and mixed with how I used to do it. So it's gonna be a whole nother way we putting out the tape. So stay tuned for that. Like I say, so cheap some love on the Cash App, y'all. We got about 1,500 people up in this joint. I think we had about 5,000 on tonight. That was a good show. Stay tuned, y'all. We'll be back in. Peace, love, one harmony. Wadu.
Wadu.